One thing I struggled with the most growing up, and probably am still struggling with to this day, is being authentic in front of other people. And having the freedom to be who you are is extremely rare, right? Even in the most economically and culturally developed countries, it's pretty rare to be yourself and be the true version of yourself. And I'm sure you guys know, I'm sure those of you guys who grew up in Asian households find it even harder to go against this collectivist culture. And a lot of East Asian cultures are rooted in the philosophy of Confucianism, which dates back to the BC era, so it's quite old, which is why some of the customs like deep bowing and avoiding eye contact to show submission and humiliation are quite outdated, and yet people still stick to the rules because certain things were done in a certain way for a long period of time, and it's now too late to change them back. And I'm not much of a rebellious person as I let on. I'm naturally a very agreeable person. Though most of the times on my videos, I'm very vocal about going against the herd, I usually keep it to myself and quietly make my own choices without publicly announcing my animosity towards the status quo that we have right now. But sometimes this tendency to avoid conflicts and hatred, it prevents me from being true to myself. And this inevitably affects my day-to-day life because whatever people and content I surround myself with, I keep getting affected by them, right? So I guess that's why I try to isolate myself as much as possible and spend time alone, because I don't want to be affected by the people around me, and I don't want them to change the path that I'm walking down. This might sound fickle, and I guess fickle might be the best word, but I don't really want to use that word because, it's a little bit different from following the herd. I'm not agreeable to the point that I try to follow the herd, but I guess the best way to describe it is I try to filter my words as much as possible to not hurt another person's feelings. So I try to beat around the bush most of the time. So for example, when I meet someone new, especially for the first time, I would never talk about the stuff I talk about on my videos, right? I would be cordial and social. And last week, Friday, I had a chance to meet up with some of the people from my extended family. And, some of them I haven't seen in decades. Some of them I haven't seen at all in my entire life. So it was pretty much like a new gathering. It's a new experience, first time seeing everybody. And since it was a family gathering, I felt like I was under this certain pressure to be this Mr. Nice Guy, who smiles all the time and responds well, smiles, and asks dumb questions like, oh, who's your favorite soccer player? Who do you think is going to win the World Cup? Just things like that. And obviously the dinner was so draining, and I kind of felt like a teenager again, surrounded by all the adults just waiting to go home and play video games, that kind of feeling. And not a single conversation was deep nor profound. And it's all because of me, right? It's all because of my shortcoming as a person. I am the one responsible for this because in the back of my mind, I wanted to throw out the topic about the current problems that we face today in Korea, the flaws in our education system, the underlying societal pressure to conform to the masses, these types of issues. But I couldn't bring them up because they had families of their own. They were pursuing the very thing they deemed to be valuable. So although I criticize all of those things, who am I to put their ideas to the test on a day when we are supposed to be cordial and well-mannered and social for the sake of strengthening our family bond, right? So I guess I thought it was not the right time and place to bring up subjects like those. So what I did was I put on a mask for several hours and performed the best society-friendly version of myself. And I just played along. Just played the best role I could play for the duration of 6 to 7 hours. And so that was another uneventful event that I had to deal with. But the truth is, I want to be that guy who just doesn't give a fuck, man. Even in family gathering situations like these, I want to be that guy who, people just immediately frown and go, oh shit, there he goes again. Can you believe that guy? That type of person. I want to be that type of guy. And I guess that is my ultimate goal. So I guess I got to keep practicing and being more well-informed and well-versed if I want to be that overconfident guy who can speak up in whatever situation he's in. The person that just doesn't fear hate, doesn't fear confrontations, doesn't fear saying what I think, doesn't fear making a fool of myself, And if you have similar goals and aspirations, maybe you can practice with me on a daily basis like this. So, thanks for listening, guys.